Now verse 25, and they both raced to the door, and she tore his shirt from the back, and they found her husband at the door. She said, what is the recompense of one who intended evil for your wife, but that he be imprisoned or a painful punishment? Now here the wife of Al-Aziz is the one who prepared this whole meeting and wanted to make sure that the whole house was free, and she would center him in a room and locked up all the doors. And she knew that this was a time that was secure, that nobody will be here. Now what happens is that she had an intention to seduce Yusuf alayhi salam. She was very interested in him. And we even talked about how he was inclined to her but rejected her completely. Why? Because of fear of Allah. And that's where we mentioned the hadith of the 7 shaded under the throne of Allah, because there, out of those 7 categories, is a man who rejects a woman not because of any reason other than the fear of Allah. Allah is promising him that shade. So in the tafsir of this ayah, they both raced towards the door, but they both have different intentions. They both had different intentions. So he raced to escape while she raced to make sure he didn't. And this shows that Yusuf alayhi salam's nobility, because he's a man. He could have pushed her aggressively or even hit her or did something more aggressive with her, but he didn't want to hurt her. He didn't want to bother with that. So he was so noble and peaceful even in his reaction. He didn't want to harm her. He just wanted to avoid her. But instead, he tried to escape. So her behavior shows dangers of love and passion and lust. You know, we're going to talk about in this verse very profoundly the importance of how to take care of your heart and the dangers of being a slave to your desires versus a slave to Allah. This is something we're going to break down today very deeply. So there are so many people who do such things and we can't imagine how they could actually bring themselves to doing this act. And the only thing that will make a person do this act is that they're thinking with their heart and their lust and their desire. They're not thinking with their brain, their logic, and their Lord. The reality is we would never do such a thing. So this act is through our fitrah and our nature that we know it's wrong, unless it's done the right way, right? So if you put yourself in this situation, know that it's a heart that's inclined to something, and we're willing to do it, and we're overseeing the big picture just for mere moments of joy. Yet that mere moments will bring you a lifetime of harm. Okay? So as Muslimin, we're taught to think before we act, to think before we do, and to hold ourselves accountable prior to acting and knowing the reason why we act and why we refrain. And that's why it's important to be servants of Allah, not slaves to our own desires. So when you look at this concept, there are so many people who do this, and we can't even imagine why they bring themselves to commit such an act. And these people in reality are just blinded. They're blinded and they don't see clearly just because they're either in love, but that love is a different type of love. It's more of a lust. I desire something and I want what I desire now, without thinking, without knowing that there's an effect. After every action, there's a reaction. And every action is held in account. And everyone will get what they put forth. Okay? So when you look at this, what's the dangers of being blinded by lust? Is that you start to become irrational. Like when a person's rational, when a person has their mind in the right place, they know what they're doing. They know right from wrong. They know how to clearly differentiate between what I should do and what I shouldn't do. But when we don't have that clarity, where our desire is so strong, that you end up doing things logically you know is wrong. Logically you know you shouldn't do it, but you end up going ahead and doing it because you're driven by a different force right now. And this is something very dangerous. That's why we always should hold ourselves accountable to a higher standard. And even if we like something, we're mindful. And if you look at Islam and what it teaches us, Islam does not just teach us that fornication or adultery are haram. It doesn't only teach us that. Every step that takes us there is not allowed. Is not allowed. And that too is haram. Because Allah is not only going to try to protect you from the big major sin, He's trying to stop you from even coming near that sin. So if you protect yourself in that way, you would never be in that circumstance. But if you have an open field and you do what you wish and you intertwine and you open your heart to things and you mingle with the opposite gender, now it's like even with the same gender, like you have to be mindful. So you have to be mindful of what you do when you do it, always controlling this heart, having the heart worried about what Allah thinks, what Allah wants, what I should do, what I shouldn't do. Because if the heart cannot hold two, it can't hold the dunya and akhirah. It can't hold two. It has to be one will override the other. So you have to ask yourself while I'm talking today about the desires, what weighs heavier in your heart? Is it the dunya and the lust of the dunya and the desire of wanting more and more and more from the dunya? Or is your heart inclined to Allah and what He wants and what the roles of our deen are? Because this is where you're going to see, because it's one of the prominent scholars, he said that you want to look at this as like a boat sailing on water. And as the boat is on top of the water, it sails beautifully. But when there's water in the boat, it sinks. And he compares this to having the dunya. The water in the boat is the dunya. And if you have the dunya only in your heart will sink. Your heart will sink. There's no room for your iman at that point. So let us be of those that are conscious of that, inshaAllah, bi'idhnillah. Now, I will come back to the aspect of slave to Allah, or the importance of slave to your desires. But as he was trying to get away from her, as Yusuf alayhi salam was trying to get away from the wife of Al-Aziz, she grabbed Yusuf alayhi salam's shirt and it tore from the back. And then as he's trying to run away from her and she's pulling his shirt, he gets open the door, and who does he see once he opens the door? The Aziz. The Aziz actually is right at the door, and they're both like thrown off. But she's very slick. So when the wife of Al-Aziz is chasing after Yusuf alayhi salam, and she's pulling on his shirt and rips his shirt, the door opens, her husband is right there. Now we can assume that normally Al-Aziz wasn't usually home during this time, because she did everything in her power to plan this whole thing out where it just happened perfectly. And she thought he would just obey and submit to her, and she would have what she wanted whenever she wanted. When the reality, that's not how Yusuf alayhi salam responded. So during this, we know that she took precautions to prevent this from happening, but it happened. Now, obviously, she was so surprised, but guess what? She immediately threw Yusuf alayhi salam under the bus. Immediately. She did not act like she was any planner of this. She had nothing to do with this. She automatically threw him under the bus. So she is so surprised that she immediately tries to prevent herself from being the one, and she actually throws Yusuf alayhi salam under the bus, and she tells her husband, "What is the punishment?" Thank you. She tells her husband, "What is the punishment for someone who wants to do this lewd acts to your wife, but imprisonment or a painful punishment?" Wow. So she's the one who wants him. She's the one who did this whole thing, but now she wants to act like she's the victim. And she is the vulnerable one, and he's trying to misuse and abuse his situation. Now, doesn't that play a common story? The common story is some people, whether it's a friend or something like this, they push you and encourage you to do something wrong, and then you tend to feel almost bad that you don't go with it, and you tend to feel vulnerable sometimes from how much they try to convince you in doing it, and then when you do it, you're the bad one. You're the one they accuse, you're the one that they throw under the bus, you're the one that they put to the side to just dry, and they act like they didn't do anything wrong, subhanAllah. And this is from the tricks of shaitan as well. So whether you have a human being, whether playing the role of a person in the world, whether it's the opposite gender wanting this type of relationship, a non-halal relationship, or a friendship with someone who is taking you from one thing to the next, or shaitan. So you have either people that will have you push to something and incline you to something evil or something that is forbidden, or you have shaitan whispering to you, playing with you, your emotions and your desires, and trying to motivate you to do something wrong. Yet shaitan will never take responsibility for what you do. And similar to people, when you get caught up, most people will not sit there and say, hey, no blame is on them, it's my fault. I've never seen it happen, actually. I've never seen it happen. So the reality is, when even we stand in front of Allah and we did something wrong, do you think we're going to have the ability to say, well, shaitan told me to do this, or whispered this to me, or this human told me to do this? No. Even shaitan, that has no power over you, he just whispers to you. And me? He will say, Ana bari'un mink. I have nothing to do with you. I didn't force you to do anything. I may have inclined you to do something, but I didn't tell you, or nor did I force you to do anything. You did it all by yourself. So that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us channels to see and to think and to hear and to speak and to act. And He gave us the ability to do or not to do. Our job is to choose the right thing, even though choosing the right thing sometimes can be very hard. But the reality is, He still wants us to use those faucets to choose the right thing, right? So this is something very important. But she did. She threw him under the bus. She just wanted this servant boy that Al-Aziz loved and respected and took care of. And he also respected the Aziz as well. And he appreciated that he took him into his home and gave him a home to live under. That, oh, he's trying to do this with your wife. What is the punishment for this? So she claims that Yusuf alayhi salam was responsible for the scene that her husband just saw right in front of him. She also mentions the punishment that should befall Yusuf alayhi salam for taking advantage of her. And what was the suggestion? Imprisonment or a painful torment. Like she just wanted to make sure that he's going to be punished. Now in verse 26, Yusuf alayhi salam said, "It was she who sought to seduce me, and a witness testified. If his shirt is torn from the front, then she has spoken the truth, and he is of the liars." And this is number 26. Now in the tafsir of this, immediately Yusuf alayhi salam he wasn't quiet. You know how sometimes people think, as a Muslim, نتوكل على رب العالمين, we have to rely on God, and we're not doing this and we're not doing that. And they think God is just going to come down and prevail their innocence for some reason and all this thing. They think Islam doesn't teach us to be stupid. Islam doesn't teach us to be silent. And Islam doesn't teach us to let people step over us. Yusuf alayhi salam immediately spoke out, even though he's in a vulnerable situation here. Do you understand? He does not have any support. He does not have any family. He doesn't have anywhere to go. He's right now in the residence of his home, in the home of the man that bought him as a servant, that they can choose to oppress him, imprison him, torture him, do whatever they want with him, right? But he didn't stay quiet. He actually defended himself and he defended his reputation by saying that she was the one who tried to seduce me. And then there was a witness from some say is part of her family. And I don't know how this witness came about, but this witness was someone from her part of the family. Though if they had been, you would think that they would be in the business of protecting her more than him. But this is where we're asked to be honest and have integrity in what we stand for. So whether I know somebody or I don't know somebody, I favor somebody or I don't favor somebody, I have to speak the truth, right? I have to be inclined to the truth. I have to stand for the truth. I have to say the truth. So, and I know that this is a very big challenge for us, that if I love somebody so much, I defend them and I don't see anything wrong with them, but if I don't like somebody, I see all their flaws. Even if they don't have a flaw, I make a flaw. You know, this is the human. If they don't like somebody, they make something wrong with them. And if somebody comes to talk about them or bash them, they are so thrilled about it. They include themselves in it. But when somebody they love, even if that person did everything, they would always defend them. Be careful of this. Be careful of this, because we're supposed to be righteous companions to each other. A righteous companion sees clearly, hears clearly, and speaks the truth. That means I'm going to protect my friend. I love my friend. I'll be honest with my friend. If my friend is doing something wrong or thinking a wrong way, I have to try to correct them. Right? Because I always want goodness for them. And I'm taught by my faith to give everyone the benefit of doubt, not just the people I love. Not just the people I love. It's everybody. So when we deal with people, be mindful of this, inshallah, because this is what tends to bring a lot of problems between people. So you wouldn't think he would protect Yusuf alayhi salam, and he would be more inclined to protecting her. And there are some narrations about a baby. You know, I'm sure some people have heard like even a baby spoke, but these are very weak narrations. But I'm just saying it because you've heard it before, and I'm just making that claim. The strongest narration is that it was someone who knew about her feelings towards Yusuf. You know how sometimes we have feelings towards people. We mention if we like them, if we don't like them, we're inclined to them or not. Well, this was the strongest opinion in the narrations. And she had strong feelings for Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. Now the witness said something that allowed the Aziz to think now rationally versus being very angry at the scene and taking his wife's word for it immediately. So the witness said, if his shirt was torn from the front, then she is truthful and he is among the liars. Now when we look at verses 27 and 28, but if his shirt is torn from the back, then she has lied and he is from the truthful. So when her husband saw his shirt torn from the back, he said, indeed, it is of the woman's plan. Indeed, your plan is great. So subhanAllah, when you look at these two ayat, the witness was telling him that if it's torn from the front, then she's telling the truth and he's lying. But if it's torn from the back, then he's telling the truth and she's lying. So in the commentary of this, in the tafsir of this verse, he says, and if his shirt was torn from the front, it would have shown that she actually tried to fight him off as he advanced on her. But if his shirt is torn from the back, it would have shown that he tried to get away from her, but she held on to him. So when her husband saw that his shirt was actually torn from the back, he said, indeed, the plot of women is mighty and great. And we're all women here except for a couple of men here. Now, we know we're storytellers. We know that we can make any story unique, spicy. We can just add the baharat. Okay? We can add the 7 spices and the turmeric and the cumin and the salt and the pepper, and we can make a normal story into this dramatic play, right? And we can do what we want. And I'm not saying just women are like this. There's some guys like this too. But women are usually storytellers, right? In this sense, that power of women, I'm going to tell you, comes with the emotional aspect of women. Men will say a story, some people will believe it or not. Women, all of a sudden, she gets vulnerable, she looks weak, maskeen. She could even cry if she has those crocodile tears. If she can know how to bring those tears fast, all of a sudden, forget it. A woman cries, oh my God, all hearts melt and we start to believe the story, right? That's why I think I learned, once I heard this about women in the sense of crying, so I tried not to cry much because I want you to be serious. I'm serious. Like, I want you to know I'm serious when I tell you something. So when I took it as like, if a person is very vulnerable and they cry often, yes, that doesn't mean they're not, but it makes the story very emotional. And when a story is emotional, people cling. The heart clings. So subhanAllah, that some of the attributes that some women have, which are true, they start to calculate. They're precise, sometimes very scheming. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. We should be always honest in our tongue and not add or sugarcoat anything, subhanAllah. We see this sometimes with stories with people, like the mother-in-law with the daughter-in-law, the sister with the sister, the friend with the friend, this devious stuff. It's very devious. Don't do it. Just stay away from it. Tell the truth. The truth will set you free. Wallah. If it's your fault, just hold on to the accountability and go with it. But if it's not your fault, know that Allah will stand for you. Allah will stand for you. Look at how even in the Quran, Aisha radiallahu anha, when she was slandered, Adi, when she found out she was hurt, she was vulnerable, she didn't go attack every Joe and Schmo that talked about her. She went by her parents. All she cared for was the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and her immediate family not to believe this, right? And she stayed, and she didn't even know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to prevail her, even in the revelation, subhanAllah. But just be patient. Don't allow things to drive you to storytelling, even in the storytelling, lying and adding things that will not be in your favor. Yani Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a witness to what we say, when we say it, how we say it. He knows what's inside. He knows what's up here. He knows everything. So be mindful not to do it. Not to do it. Not to utilize that beautiful, clever, skillful talent of ours in the wrong way. Don't use it in that way. The last verse that I want to talk about today is verse 29. And verse 29 states that Yusuf alayhi salam ignored this. So he's told by the Aziz, ignore this. And my wife, he turned to his wife and he told her, go ask for forgiveness for your sin. Indeed, you were from the sinful. Now in this last verse, in the discussion of this last verse, when a mistake is done for the first time, you should take precautionary measures so that it is not repeated. So Allah did not say that we can't make mistakes. That's not, the mission in life. The mission in life is to avoid mistakes, to try our best to not do the mistake. But if we're ever inclined to a mistake and we fall for that mistake, it's to really be vigilant in yourself that, hey, I admit it's a mistake. I need to turn back and not go back to that mistake. I need to go back to Allah and repent for that mistake and make amends. So our whole job on this earth as imperfect human beings is to do the right thing to the best of our ability. But if we fall in error, to fix it by our repentance and staying away from doing that same error again. Right? Now, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he talked about the human in this concept. He says, كل بني آدم خطاء. All the children of Adam alayhi salam make mistakes. He says, and خير الخطائين التوابون. The best of those who make mistakes are those who repent. So nobody should be in the, obviously we want to work our iman to reach a level of ihsan and to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as if we see Him right in front of us. Because believe me, if we see God right in front of us, we're not going to do nothing that we do. Nothing. Not even one of the things that we do. And even the good things that we do it on a whole different ball game. In a whole different level. Right? But that's the mission. The mission is to worship Allah as if we see Him. But we're not going to see Him. We have to just know that He sees us. And the whole point is not to be perfect. If we were perfect, He would destroy us completely and bring another group of people to do this, to go back and forth, because He wants us to know that He is the perfect one. He is the creator. We are His servants, and we're in this mission just to try our best to do the right thing and avoid the wrong thing. And even if we do that mistake, we rush back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You guys, we're in a world, we're in a creation. God created us from Himself back to Him. So we're in a journey. We're in a journey from Him back to Him. So this journey, we have to be mindful of what we do and when we do it. That does not mean we're not going to make mistakes. We make mistakes a lot. Sometimes knowingly and unknowingly, with the intent and not even intentional, subhanAllah. But the reality is, when I know I'm doing something wrong, this is where I have to hold myself accountable. I have to try to control myself, my heart, my desires, my actions in a way that's pleasing to my Lord. Okay? Now, when you look at this, you are supposed to learn from your mistake, and from the first time you make it. You don't want to be of that small percentage of people that make a mistake, but they keep falling in the same mistake over and over again. I'm sorry to say, that just makes us dumb at that point. If we do something wrong and we know it's something wrong, and we keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, falling over and tripping over our feet, the same thing over and over again, that really makes us, I don't know, like how babies say, مخ fi. There's no brain to the concept. We're not even thinking, right? We don't want to be like that. The mass majority of people, they actually make a mistake before they learn. And I know, like even as parents, we always try to educate our children and tell them, hey, don't do this, do this, do this, do this, don't do this. Why? Because we want them to help prevent them from making an error, prevent them from making a mistake. But the reality is, this is only an elite type of people that they don't need to make a mistake. They see somebody else make a mistake and they see the consequence or the aftermath of that mistake, and they say, oh, not me, I'm not going to do that. But the mass majority of people, they kind of have to walk this trail, make a fall, and then they'll learn. They'll learn. But let us try to be at least of those who learn, or those who see others and observe others and not make the mistake ourselves. We learn from other people's mistakes. Because wallahi, you know why we make the same mistakes is because we think even if we do the same thing wrong, we're better, we're different, we're going to have a different result. But the reality is we're all going to have the same result. It's just a matter of when. It's just a matter of when and where. So don't think you can outsmart the system. If something is wrong, then stay away from it. Because even if you didn't get caught up the first time or the 10th time, you'll eventually get caught up. Don't think you won't get caught up. Don't think there's no effect to your actions. There is. Every action has a reaction. Every action. So you're no different in that sense. So continuing with that, it says the exact reason behind Al-Aziz's lack of action remains unknown. But some reasons to why he did not do anything about the situation include that he didn't want to make it a bigger deal. Al-Aziz had a big, strong position in Egypt. He didn't want to kind of blow up his home or blow up his wife or, have some show in his home. He wanted to keep things on the down low. He also wanted to save the embarrassment for his wife because he felt like she was the one who sinned. And maybe he did not want his reputation to be tainted as it would have been, how people love, a storyline. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but that was, never shared, but we could assume these things. Now Al-Aziz told Yusuf alayhi salam to brush this matter aside, and he turned to his wife and he said to seek forgiveness for your sin. Here, he frees Yusuf alayhi salam from this, and he is like humbled, and he's like now kind of embarrassed in front of Yusuf alayhi salam, and he's asking him to kind of forget about this and forgive it, while he turns to his wife and he tells her, go seek forgiveness because you have sinned. Now, some narrations say he meant to ask for forgiveness from Yusuf alayhi salam and him, and other narrations say that he meant to ask Allah for forgiveness. So regardless, whether it's to Yusuf alayhi salam or to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he wanted her to ask for forgiveness and admit her shortcoming. And he continued by saying, indeed, you are among the sinful. So when you look at the concept of the desire and how powerful it is, you know the heart is a very important channel in our body, emotionally. When the heart is inclined to something, then that challenge becomes super real. If my heart is not inclined to something, then I don't care. It doesn't bother me. If you tell me to stay away from it, I'll stay away from it because I'm not into it. But when my heart is inclined to something, all of a sudden it captures it with all hands and says, I want it no matter what. Even if I know deep down it's wrong, I still desire it. And I'm pushed to it. And that's why we're only trying to purify our heart in a way that our heart is filled with Allah. Our heart is filled with Allah. And this is why it's important for us to be a slave to Allah. So when you look at the aspect of slave to Allah or a slave to your desires, it is a central theme in the Islamic theology. It presents a fundamental choice that, according to the teachings, everyone must make. Yani, if I know certain things are part of this faith, if I know the rules, the guidelines, and I hold myself to it, that tells me I'm going to control my desire and I'm going to follow what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from me. So when you look at slavery to Allah, as Muslimin, being a slave, an abid of Allah, is not a negative thing. It's not a negative concept. It actually means honor and freedom. So when I am free of everything else and I am a servant and a slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is an honor. I have to look at it as an honor, not a negative thing. It's an ultimate freedom. Now when I say ultimate freedom, by submitting to Allah, a person is freed from all other forms of servitude. I don't have to worry about servitude to other people, to money, to social standards. I don't have to be a servant to anything. I am not even a servant to my own ego, my own wants and desires, my own nafs. You guys, if I'm going to keep worrying about what people want and what societal norms are, people change all the time. People are incomplete. They like you one second, they hate you another second. Okay? If I'm in a society, every day there's a new trend. If I'm going to just go with the flow, I'm only hurting myself. Actually, that means I'm being a slave, true slave. But if I'm a servant and slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm giving myself that true freedom, independence. God wants me to have it. So you should want to have it. You should never want to be of those that just go with the flow and follow the social norms and what everybody else is doing. That means you're lost. If you're going to go with the majority, you're going to be lost because people do this. They just follow the wind. And honestly, it's hard to do that. It's hard to be a slave to people and what they think of me, and I'm only going to be a people pleaser. That's going to hurt you. And you have to be mindful in all aspects. So if you really want ultimate freedom, you become a slave of Allah. It rids you from this pressure. It rids you from it. Also, it gives you the purpose and peace. Acknowledging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the ultimate master provides a clear purpose in life. It's leading you to a sense of inner peace. You want sakina? You want contentment? Do you want sakina? Do you want that peace, that internal peace? Then make sure you're a servant of Allah and not a servant to anything else. Make sure. You're not doing it for people, money, or things. The dunya is temporary. Keep it there. Keep it there. And the last point that I'll mention, and then I'll end with dua, is breaking chains. You know, Islamic scholars Teach that every good deed breaks a chain of worldly attachment, while every bad deed adds one. So true freedom is attained by breaking these chains through devotion to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So believe me, act righteous, do good deeds, make sure you follow the obligations, and you will see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will free you from these chains. The last thing is, sometimes you wonder, am I really a servant of Allah, or am I really a slave to my desires? Well, I'll tell you, the alternative to submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is being enslaved to your own base desires, your nafs. And the Quran speaks of these, take their own desires as their gods. We don't want to be of those who take our desires in place of God, that dictates to us what to do and what not to do. Now, when we are a slave to our desires, we have a loss of reason, we have a spiritual and emotional distress, and it's an accumulation of sins. We keep sinning and sinning and sinning and sinning because we're chasing these desires. So I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to truly help us and to truly purify us. So join me in this dua. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide us and to keep us guided. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify our heart and purify our intentions. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those that are servants of His and not slave to our desires. We ask Allah to grant us His love and the love of those who love Him and the love of every deed that will bring us closer to His love. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive any and all of our mistakes. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to always grant us a pathway that will allow us His love and His reward, and to protect us from a pathway that will earn us His wrath or His punishment. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in.